One strike and billions of dollars worth of damage. I'm sure that is just what the Russian economy needs right now. So for the second time in 4 days, Ukraine has targeted Russian Wildberries logistics facilities, which is effectively the Russian Amazon. And in addition to producing some absolutely wild footage, it's a pretty clever way to add pressure to the Putin regime to end the war. So Ukrainian President Zelensky earlier today said, quote, "We are justly returning the war to its source, to Russia. Peace is needed, and Ukraine has made all possible proposals to the Russian side. We must force them to move towards diplomacy." And we'll get into that angle here in a second. Zelensky added that Ukrainian long-range strikes successfully targeted important facilities in the Krasnodar and Stavropol regions, logistics centers involved in supplying the Russian army with components for drones, navigation equipment, and supplies, as well as another oil depot. Now, the Wildberries facilities are all across Russia. They're massive, apparently very, very flammable based off of what we've seen in recent days. And in addition to, yes, they do provide some support to the Russian armed forces, but it's also a major economic hub for the Russian people. The Kyiv Post said, according to Sergei Simko, a leading analyst at Data Insight, fires at the previous two facilities destroyed goods worth at least $1.9 billion, with total losses potentially reaching $2 to $3 billion. That's a lot. Those are just the goods. That's not even the facility that was destroyed. I think they valued the two facilities at like $380 million. So pretty significant losses gone like that. The Russian response here, Media Rybar says, quote, "The losses of the company itself, as well as the organizations represented there, are already measured in billions, and expenses continue to grow. This is the main goal of the enemy, to strike at Russia's economy even harder. Only now, in addition to refineries and factories, the consumer sector is suffering. Wildberries accounts for 45% of the Russian online shopping market, according to various data, and together with Ozon, another company, the figures reach 77%. Therefore, strikes on major warehouses will lead to the ruin of many businessmen, not to mention how prices will rise due to logistics problems." He says the only way to counter this is by weakening the enemy's combat potential and saturating air defense with additional defensive means. Here's the thing. They can't. If Russia had the ability to stop all of these Ukrainian drones, they would have been doing that for quite a while now. We are seeing the tide turn in this regard, where every day, and the videos and the pictures that we're showing in today's segment are evidence of that. Every day, Ukrainian drones are striking new targets across Russian territory. They are launching more drones at more targets. Meanwhile, they are taking out Russian air defense. So going back to the early days of the war, Russia has never, as any country can say the same, has never had enough air defense. Everybody always wants more. Well, Ukraine has been degrading that air defense slowly but steadily. Just overnight, we got additional footage from the Ukrainian Unmanned Systems Forces showing that they destroyed yet again another Tor M2 SAM system, a Buck M1 SAM system, and 5 radars in Russian and Russian-occupied Ukrainian territories. This stuff adds up. It's not replaced quickly. And what Ukraine has done is forced Russia into this situation where they have to decide who is the priority. What is the priority? Where do we put this air defense? Does it go in Crimea? Does it go around a headquarters facility for the southern grouping of forces? Does it go around the Kremlin? Does it go around oil facilities? Does it go around the Kerch Bridge? Or now, does it go around the logistics facilities? And the reason I said that this is kind of a new way, a unique way of bringing the war home to Russia, is Ukraine has the ability, we have seen it, with these drones, they could be flying these into Russian high-rises every single day and killing dozens, hundreds, maybe even thousands of Russian citizens. They could. The exact drones that are impacting these facilities and hitting ships in the Black Sea and the Sea of Azov, hitting all of these military targets at distance, every one of those could be repurposed into a civilian facility. That would drive up the cost inside of Russia, no doubt. That would also, in addition to being illegal and clearly targeting civilians, that would also likely motivate the Russian people against the Ukrainians. It would harden their resolve. And this is one of we've seen this throughout history. The Battle of Britain is a great example, but I would argue we're seeing it right now in Ukrainian cities throughout this war. When Russia hits civilian infrastructure, it doesn't cause the Ukrainian people to say, let's give up. It hardens their resolve and says, we have to end this. So Ukraine, instead of going after civilians like they could, are going after ways to affect the civilian population. Things like oil and gas. Driving gas prices up. In some areas, especially in the occupied territories, gas isn't even available at most times. this is another leg, another step in that ladder. So think of that from a perspective here in the United States. And I think the Iran war is actually a really good example in this sense. Iran shut down the Strait of Hormuz. And when you look at what people get upset about with the rising gas prices, how many people say we need to double down and go in the Iranian regime versus looking at our politicians and our decisions that were made? And I would argue that the vast majority of people are looking internal. Same thing here. When the Russian citizens can no longer get gas, or gas is exceptionally expensive, and then their deliveries stop showing up, or their orders are just lost, and these small and medium businesses are going out of business, are they going to look at Ukraine and get upset? Or is there at least a pretty fair chance they look internal? They look at their own politicians, they look at the Kremlin, they look at Putin and say, you did this. You are bringing this home to us. I think it's actually a pretty smart move on Ukraine's end, and it's set to continue. There's no reason for this to stop anytime soon. And then pretty significant change at the top of the Ukrainian military announced last night, with Ukrainian President Zelensky announcing that the commander-in-chief, General Syrskyi, would be replaced. Now, just a couple days ago, the Ukrainian Defense Minister Fedorov was replaced. So you're talking about the two top people in the Ukrainian military moved out in the span of a couple days. That's significant in peacetime, certainly significant during war. Now, Zelensky put out a note last night saying, quote, and I'm going to get this name wrong for a little while, I'm working on it. He says, quote, I have decided that Mikhailo Drapety will become the new commander-in-chief of the armed forces of Ukraine. It is a fact that Alexander Syrskyi delivered results for Ukraine in the defense of Kyiv, the Kharkiv offensive, and the Kursk operation. I'm grateful to Syrskyi and every one of our warriors for Ukraine's strong positions on the front. We all want the same thing, to defeat the enemy and create the conditions on the front line and through pressure on Russia that would allow us to force Russia into peace. Tomorrow, we will formalize all of these decisions. Ukraine must emerge from this situation stronger, and it will be harder for Russia. Now, generally speaking, I think it's good to look at what an adversary says when changes like this take place. Like if the United States puts in a new Secretary of Defense, a new chairman of the Joint Chief, and like China starts celebrating, that's probably a bad sign. Same thing here. So when looking at Russian media, overall, the sentiment is negative. They're not super excited about this change. Mill blogger Romanov said that Syrskyi was similar to Gerasimov in the Russian military, adding, quote, this is bad for us. Maxim Klishnikov, another Russian war reporter, said, quote, he's a very capable general and not a butcher. This is bad news for the Russian armed forces. And then Russian media Rybar said the 43-year-old Drapety does look more like a dangerous enemy than the aforementioned Syrskyi, who, not without reason, became the subject of numerous Russian memes and criticism from Ukrainian media. And then my view on this is that it's a change, but not necessarily like a war-winning or war-losing change. The commander of any armed forces, especially in a time of war, of course, can be very important. But look, the Ukrainian military right now is not Russia. So it's not top down like the Russian military. It's not even like the Ukrainian military 4 years ago. They've changed a lot. And one of the things they've done is delegate authority down the chain of command, delegate innovation down the chain of command. So you are seeing incredible changes and initiative at the corps, brigade, even battalion level. So yes, a new commander-in-chief can change the overall direction of the conflict, change the resourcing, change the priorities, no doubt. And we might see that. So time will tell. But I wouldn't expect anything drastic to shift along the front lines in the next few days or weeks. Like a new commander-in-chief does not mean that Ukraine is going to form up a new army and push some major offensive operation into the Russian defenses in the south. All right, that's probably not in the cards anytime soon, but it will be interesting. Syrskyi's been there for a long time, so little change in view in how Ukraine is planning to execute the remainder of this war. All right, then quick fundraiser update here. Car for Ukraine, not just delivering cars. They're also helping a Wounded Warriors hockey team compete in London next month. So the details on that will be in the description below. And we've got a video from these hockey players I'll play here in a second. But Car for Ukraine, incredible organization. We've worked with them for more than a year at this point, delivered more than 20 vehicles to frontline units. And when they aren't driving those trucks, new refurbished trucks into Ukraine, into the front line, they're helping out Ukraine's Wounded Warriors. So incredible cause through a great organization. For those interested in learning more, that'll be in the pinned comment and description below. But that's all we got for now. Thanks for watching, and I'll see y'all next time.
We are veterans from Ukraine and para-ice hockey player from club Unbroken, Lviv. We are invited to London, UK to play friendly games with national British para-ice hockey team. So we ask Car for Ukraine community to support us with that trip and make these friendly games happen through your donation. Thank you, and Slava Ukraini!